Hi everyone. Thanks thanks for joining us in this first Talking Tech at Microsoft show. I'm really excited, also slightly very nervous about being the first one. This could either be a great session and viewing goes up, or it could be one of those pilot episodes that no one ever hears from again. But thank you very much for joining us today. And you know, my name's Andrew Lowson. I'm part of here the Microsoft Managed Desktop and Windows 365 team. And our team is a regional team that really looks beyond what we're doing today with our standard Microsoft 365 services and looks the next generation of services we're coming out with Microsoft. And today we really want to dig into Microsoft Managed Desktop, and please feel free to ask questions along the way. I'll love to dig into those questions as we go through. So, when we start off, when we think of Windows 365, where did it really come from? And it came out of a listening tour that our senior leadership team and people like Satya and Amy and etc. did a number of years ago, probably about maybe nowadays 4 or 5 years ago with customers. And they met with a number of customers around the globe and got us our clear, consistent message back that they're all in Windows 365. We're all in Microsoft 365 and all in Windows, but their experience was very different to the one that we would come in and talk about or they saw at home. And they really said to them that he sort of said to Satya and our leadership that, can you do to the desktop what you did with Exchange and SharePoint, etc., when you moved that into Office 365 and just take that burden away from us? And you guys build this software, can't you just run it? And that was really the nucleus for what started with the Microsoft Managed Desktop. And we're really looking at doing that transitional shift from, and think of it very much like, the move from Exchange on-premise to Exchange online. And how we can take that, the burden of the desktop and keeping it up to date and secure away from you, deliver, really maximize the promise of that and allow you to focus on what makes you unique as an organization. And our first premise also was that how can we, customers are saying, why doesn't my desktop work like my mobile device? They were saying that a lot of times you spend more money on these modern devices than you do on desktops or even laptops, and you do not take this device out of the box, put a custom image on it, do other stuff, and then put it back in the box and send it to the user. You send it directly to the user. The user opens up the device, they go through an enrollment process, all the software and policies come down. Plus, they know they're going to get a great battery life, they're going to get great OS experience, it's always going to be kept up to date, etc. So really, that's the sort of the premise and the vision that we're doing around Microsoft Managed Desktop. And when we started working with our first customers, we started working with them around their desktop. We started to see sort of some figures that were really worrying around the fact that the average boot time of our early customers before they moved to Windows 365 was about 8.5 minutes. But some of our earliest customers, Lloyd's Banking Group out of the UK, openly talk about this. They used to open up their laptops on the London Tube on the way to the office to make sure they're usable by the time they sort of got into the office. And that wasn't because they made any sort of bad decisions, it was just their legacy and all those GPOs and all those add-ons that they had on the desktop to meet their business. And it breaks my heart, when we would start working on this and we'd go in and talk to customers and they would have these brand new devices and they would put a custom image or gold image on them, and they would half their battery life or worse on those devices. And what we saw also with customers was there's sort of this thing called NPS, which is the Net Promoter Score, essentially what users think of IT through their Windows-based experience. And at Lloyd's, again, they openly talk about this. When we started M&D there, their Net Promoter Score was -89. And that was, essentially users' view of IT and their experience they were getting on their desktop. So when we started down with the MMD, we're really looking at focusing on, 4 key areas. Think of them like 4 big bets. So the first one was, how can we really maximize the employee experience? How, when you take a brand new device, and we support Surface, naturally, Surface, HP, Dell, and Lenovo devices, how can we deliver on the promise of that device in terms of battery life, free processor, free RAM, how we can maximize the experience from M365 and the software like Office, Teams, etc., the cloud services, Windows, and the device and the silicon itself to really bring the best possible experience to the user, not only on day one, but day 100, 300, 600, 900. And with MMD, one of the big things we focus on was particularly that out-the-box experience. When the user unwraps a device and they go through a self-enrollment experience. And like the majority of our customers, over the last 2 years, we've seen every customer who's moved into MMD has done that basically sitting at home, whether it be in their study, their cupboards, their bedrooms, whatever. And we got a number of high-profile customers move into MMD, and they've just shipped the devices directly to users, and they've gone through that enrollment process, just like a mobile phone, but on their Windows desktop, and self-enrolled, and their applications come down, and they're essentially in a usable desktop within about 10 to 15 minutes, depending on network connection, etc. And that's been a big focus area of ours, of making sure that managed autopilot experience, things like language packs, things like time to desktop, etc., were really hard problems to solve at the beginning, and really making that super smooth. And also, we've been focusing on how can we bring that experience to existing desktops. So, we also support existing desktops as long as they meet our minimum requirements of 8 gig SSD hard drives and TPM 2.0, essentially as the sort of headline requirements. And, we can also bring those existing devices into MMD and give that same enrollment experience. We had a number of customers, again, through COVID. We had one customer in Melbourne, MLC, which is a public case study, who they actually moved into MMD leveraging existing desktops while all their users were sitting at home, and everyone was sitting at home. And we flipped those desktops from their existing environment into MMD, and the users went through that enrollment experience. And now they have a great software experience on those existing devices. The second area we start to look at, and I often sort of apologize when we started down this road. I know this is broadcast out on the internet, so I have to be careful what I say here. But when we started down this road, we quickly noted that the sort of marketing vision around this thing called modern management was here, and the engineering reality was here. So I often apologize if you find modern management hard. That's not you, it's us. And we spent a lot of the last sort of 3 or 4 years working on MMD, really removing a lot of the sort of stupid stuff, but also bringing the platform up. And you're starting to see that with things like White Glove, etc. So what we saw with customers was, even though we had this vision of modern management, managed by Intune stroke MEM, Autopilot, etc., there's still a ton of stuff you had to figure out. What's the right policies? What's the security baseline? How do you plumb this together? So we wanted to remove that complexity from customers and deliver what we consider best practice, devised by our engineering teams and the people who write the software. Also, what we noticed was that, it's relatively easy to autopilot a few devices. And on day one, you have this sort of beautiful environment. But by day 100, 200, you start to introduce deltas and creeps. And you start to sort of have what we call sort of Windows rot in the environment. And your sort of beautifully tendered modern management garden starts to grow weeds, and your baselines, you got a number of devices on one baseline, you got another device on different baseline or different additional agents, etc., and they just kill that drain. And that sort of leads on to the third big area, is around the fact that we were constantly being told by customers that IT talent is in short supply, and that was even before COVID. It's even worse now. And that that talent, that architect and CTO roles, were focused too much on break fix and not enough on the 6, 12, 18-month roadmap and the unique stuff of their organizations and transforming organizations. So MMD isn't a traditional managed service that comes along and sort of, we're going to take all your stuff, take it off you, wrap it in a bow, and then give it back to you. It's a totally new style of managed IT as a service. So if you think of the move from sort of on-prem to cloud, that was SaaS with Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, Office 365. MMD is the next wave. That's sort of IT as a service, where we're going to bring out a whole bunch of managed services from Microsoft over the sort of medium to longer term that are going to support your existing IT teams and allow them to elevate their vision and engagement of the organization. And we saw that with SAPN, our first customer in Australia, where their team is now engaged more deeply with the business around how they can really transform in areas like Power Platform, big data, AI, networks, connectivity. And then the fourth big bet is around security. And with every MMD device, it's protected 24/7 by the same, Microsoft MMD SOC, which is an extension of our Cyber Defense Operations Center that protects Microsoft Cloud and all Microsoft employees and a number of third parties. And how we can bring everything we know about security in an active, not only monitoring, but remediation, cleanup, and review, they actually bring that down weight to bear on the endpoint, because we're increasingly seeing, as people move into the cloud and the cloud, significantly hardened, that threat is moving to the desktop. So how can we bring active defense down to the desktop that provides 24/7 protection for the data, the device, and the user? So when we bundle that up, there's three key areas we're going to focus in with MMD around how we can bring that expert security and bring service, excellence in service, and the fact that the people who write the code, the engineering teams like Microsoft 365, Windows, etc., MEM, actually run the service. How can we empower your IT teams through this new operating model called IT as a service, so that their focus can elevate up into that architect, that vision role, that enabler within an organization, in the same way that when you move from on-prem to the cloud, you're no longer worried about sort of updating or upgrading or backing up Exchange Online. You've then focused on how do you maximize the value of your investment in 365 with things like OneDrive, Teams, etc. You're going to see the same thing with MMD. And then the third pillar is how can we bring the best out of modern devices, Microsoft 365 and the software, and bring it together to really deliver world-class experiences to users. So when we engage with that with our customers, we really, whoops, I'll just flip that. We really say that, the slide's gone a bit wrong there, but when we have delivered that into customers, we see that boot time coming from tens of minutes down to under 25, under 30 seconds, sometimes with newer devices under 20 seconds, 17, 18 seconds, to really deliver on the promise of that. We also seen battery life, go from 3.5 on average to about 7.6, with some of the newer devices go into double figures, and really make sure that that device through an agentless service is delivering maximum battery life, maximum free processor, free RAM. So customers don't have to worry that that device is going to slow down over time. We're going to be focusing over time to make sure that it keeps delivering on that promise on day 1, day 100, 300, etc. And with the sort of Lloyd's, their sort of NPS score went from -89 to +74 as they've moved into MMD. And we get these figures for the fact that we actively go out every year and actually engage with our customers as they move into MMD. And you leverage Qualtrics to go and study our customers and the impact we're making to make sure we're aligned to our vision, but also aligned to what customers see as most impactful of moving to the service. So as mentioned, MMD is a cross Microsoft effort. And it's really about putting the customer at the center. And across the Microsoft 365 engineering team, Teams, MEM, Autopilot, the Windows engineers, so that we can maximize impact of, Windows as a desktop of choice, and then hook that into the actual Microsoft managed desktop engineering team who run the service. And as customers move into the service and get to about 1,000 users, they get a service delivery manager, a single point of contact. We want to shorten the time from problem to resolution by the fact that we understand and know the software better than anyone because we write it and we got access to the source code. And we want to start bringing in tools, as we are doing right now, that really does proactive remediation using big data and AI to actually, understand customer problems before they even understand they've got a problem, by really moving from reactive to proactive IT resolution. So, one thing to note with MMD is it's not just Windows as a service. It's what I call full stack evergreen. So the MMD engineering team focuses on everything from what's the right device options across desktops, two-in-one laptops, etc., working with the OEMs, HP, Dell, Lenovo, and Surface, right through maximizing the hardware security features in those devices, keeping drivers, firmware up to date, helping customers stay current on 10 and help them, as part of the service, move to 11, right through to making sure that, Defender is a managed service on those devices, that we're going to keep up to date the Microsoft apps, of course, and we're also going to be on hook that if we knock over with an update, a customer app, line of business app, whether it be browser, desktop, or Office, we're going to engage the App Assure team and work out how we can actually get those. First of all, we roll that update back. We then engage the App Assure team on your behalf and then work out how we can move forward. And if we need to, we'll fix underlying Office browser and Windows itself. So it's really about how we do the leverage that full stack evergreen. And we then interlock that with the Security Operations Center to provide that 24/7 overwatch and active threat hunting and remediation service on all MMD devices. Also, the Security Operations Center engaged with, as you naturally expect, our engineering teams to keep the security baseline up to date and evolving over time as threats and also technology evolves. And we're really focused on how we can, deliver the best possible experience, leveraging what we think of as a zero trust architecture. So these MMD devices are Azure AD joined. They're not AD joined. They're managed by MEM, not SSCM, and they're defended by Defender for Endpoint. And large part of my team's job and the extended engineering team's job is to work with customers to understand, one, how they can adopt the service, two, maximize its value, and help them by holding their hand while they modernize their environment with things like Windows Hello for Business, around things like, how do you adopt a modern VPN or app proxy infrastructure. And MMD is really unique in the fact that, for every single customer, we actually assign an engineering team to handhold them through the whole process from the initial workshops right through to mass deployment before we engage an SDM, service delivery manager, with them. Because we understand that, MMD is a new service. And I actually flip to this slide and I'll go back to the last one before I finish, is that MMD is a new world, so we want to do a lot of upfront due diligence with our customers around the understand and discover phase, and that's where my team and engineering engage, and we go through in exact detail what the service isn't, any unique capability, any unique requirements a customer may have. Is there any dragons in there, in fact, unsupported devices, or things like legacy apps that require AD, direct connect, etc., etc. So we want to be very clear what it is and isn't. We want to understand customers' environment, how MMD maps to the existing and future state, and then is this even going to work? How can we define success? What does success look like? So from that discover phase onwards, if a customer wants to move forward, they're going to have direct engineering engagement that we can bring in any team member, whether it be developers and delivery net optimization, MEM experts, etc., etc., as we go through that journey. And one thing we announced a couple of weeks ago at the Windows event was that we understand that, you know, MMD, requires a customer to do, not insignificant modernization. As I mentioned, these devices are moving to, modern management, they're Azure AD joined, they're, require modern certificate management network, et cetera, that sometimes that's a bit of a step too far, but customers still want to get on the journey of leveraging this sort of IT as a service modern management. So we announced Autopatch, which is a service that's included in Windows E3. That essentially is the core update and evergreen service from MMD that's going to keep your Office and Windows up to date. That's included as part of a benefit of Windows E3. So any customers Windows E3, they'll be able to, from July onwards, be able to take advantage of Autopatch and remove that workload off you onto us. You don't need to do anything on your end users' machines as long as they've got hybrid Azure AD join. They can be managed by SSAM, Intune in co-management mode. We're just going to apply our update rings and our service over the top. And it's a great sort of first step into the world of managed services. And we're looking for preview customers right now for that. And then sitting on top of that, we have Microsoft Managed Desktop, which is the sort of full stack we've been working through right now, talking about the last 20 minutes. And that's where we layer on everything from security management, hardware, device configuration, device security, and expert service as a additional paid service on top of Autopatch, where customers really want to deliver that sort of, the promise around modern devices and really unlock the full M365 experience and have the backup of Microsoft engineering and that 24/7 SOC over the top. So thank you very much for your time today. There's been, feel excited and still slightly nervous the fact I'm the first one. Hopefully enjoyed that quick run through of what everything is Microsoft Managed Desktop. Happy to take any questions if there are. And look, our team would love to engage with customers around understanding, where you are, where you're on the journey, and either around Autopatch, Windows Autopatch, or around full-blown MMD. So I think I will hand over back to the studio.